2019 Halloween. I decided to create this one based on the stamping plate. So I'm continuing on with my sort of goal of trying to use up all my plates at least once. I'm thinking for my next design I might try and use 2 plates in one just to kind of speed up the process, particularly because most of the plates I've got left are pretty much all Halloween ones. So I could use them maybe for like a Friday 13th or something like that, but it's quite difficult to try and use them throughout the year, although I have done that before. So the plate I'm using is a Bundle Monster, okay, Metallurgy plate. I'll tuck my link down below if you want 10% off. Follow that link or use code The Nail Chronicle. Anyway, so I used the black Conad stamping polish, and you'll notice a few jump cuts through this video. It's because I'm starting, well, I mentioned before I was running out of the Conad black, so I'm really trying to like get to the last bits of the bottom of this polish. I have now managed to get a new one. Oddly enough, I was in Melbourne and went to the Queen Victoria markets a few weeks ago, and I came across a stall that had Conad products. So they had like the stamping polishes and scrapers and everything like that, and I couldn't believe that it was even there, and that was in the markets. I was quite surprised, and I was a little bit excited. It just, not so much like being a fan of the Conad polishes, but more just the fact that I saw it in somewhere mainstream in Australia. It just doesn't happen here. So anyway, I picked up a brand new black, and I also decided to get silver. It's been a colour that I've wanted to try for a while, and try and incorporate some metallics. And I don't know, I think I just bought the basic colours when I first started stamping, so maybe I need to start looking at expanding my colours a little bit, and I might look at a few different brands just to have a bit of a play as well. So if you've got any suggestions on different brands that I should try, let me know in the comments below, and I'll check them out. So I just sort of kept stamping onto my stamping mat and eventually filled it up. With this one, I didn't follow my rule of having an extra design. I figured if I damaged one, I would just do a plain stamp on my nail. The reason for this is because I was having trouble picking up the image, and I was just getting a bit frustrated, so I decided I'll just do my bare minimum, make sure I've got enough clear images for what I wanted to do, and that was it, and just take a bit of a risk there. I also stamped a few images onto my nails directly as well. I wanted to create a bit of a blank space, sort of it's sort of white space, mainly because the images that I was creating on my stamping mat were going to be really bright. So I was going to use like bright pink, orange, a bright blue, and so I wanted to not make it too overpowering and have a bit of a negative space or white space in there, just to sort of balance out the images, and balance out the design a little bit, so it's not so in your face, because this is already going to be quite a scary design. So when I first started sort of looking at what I was going to create with this plate, because I chose the design based on the plate, I was a little bit stumped, and I sort of knew I wanted to put the clowns on some sort of background color, and I was really stumped with what background color I was going to use. I was thinking maybe a white, but then I wanted to do a white face of the clown, that classic white makeup sort of style that clowns would typically be seen with. And so I decided to sort of Google the plate and see what I came up with, and I found one that had sort of a creamy color background, and so I thought, okay, that will kind of work if I do something light, something fairly neutral, a bit of a nude color. And as I'm going through, I'm like, okay, Shell Your Dance will work because it's got a bit of pink undertone to it, or sort of peachy pink, and it would enhance the other colors that I have. So this is why I went with this color. Here I started filling out the colors of the clowns using, and I tried to stick with really bright colors. So, and that included like reds and blues. I even used red on some of the eyes as well, just to make it a bit more scary. I used the dotting tool for this, and you've seen me use this in other videos. I found it's much more effective than using paintbrushes because you can get a lot more accurate with it in terms of getting on the spaces. I think for most of this one I used the smallest dotting tool that I have, except for the faces where I used a bigger one because I'm just covering the whole area. So accuracy, other than when I get to the edges, isn't as important as when I'm doing things like the eyes or the bits of the hat and the hair in this design. The biggest tip I can give with the dotting tool is put more polish on than you think you need within reason. If you put it on so much that it's going to drip off, you're just going to get big blobs where you don't want them. But if you don't put enough on, it will start sticking to the lines and the polish that's actually on the mat and lift it up. And then you end up with an image that's quite often destroyed. Sometimes you can rescue them, but more often than not, if I have that happen, I pretty much have to start the image again, which comes back to my rule of make sure you've done spare, or you've done more images than you think you'll need. More often than not, one of them will be damaged. It's just, I don't know if it's just my luck or if I'm doing something wrong, but it's just a technique I've found that has saved me in the past of having to go back and start the whole process again just for one nail, which is not the thing I'm most keen on. So I just sort of slowly dotted this in, and I sort of dabbed it in as well, rather than trying to stroke it across, which is more likely to pick up those black lines. You just want to sort of dab it and push the paint around, so you're kind of like sort of smudging it out, if that's a term, just so you can check that you've got the thing. So I was just counting there just to make sure that I did have enough images, because it was looking like I was a little bit off in terms of the number of images. So I started using a little bit of pink here as well, just along the red, just to add some more of the bright colour and add a little bit more contrast to it. And I just kept going with all the different colours. All the colours are listed in my blog post. I'll chuck the link below. I think there's about 8 different colours or 8 different polishes in total that I ended up using. And I didn't really stick to a particular brand. I just went with what colours would work. So I used a little bit of OPI. I think I had a bit of Nails ink in there. And what else? I think they were the main ones in terms of the bright colours that I used. There's a couple other smaller brands in there as well. So just to give that sort of contrast and add that brightness. So onto my final stage, as I mentioned before, I wanted to create that classic white clown look. So I did this step last, and I just covered their entire face in white polish. And it's important when you do this step to make sure that things like the eyes or any other facial details that you've filled in are fairly dry, because you don't want the colours blending or mixing, because then you're just going to end up with this horrible run of colours, unless that's something that you're going for. Yeah, that's partly why I did the eyes first, just to make sure that the eyes had dried and you get a really nice clear crisp image, or as much as you can. The eyes were quite hard to do because they were so small, but it worked. So I just kept going along. I finally found the brand of this white, so I'll put that on the link, but it's one I picked up in a bargain bin, and it's actually been one of my best whites that I've had. My OPI white was really good as well, but it's gotten super gloopy and thick. I'm going to try and use it as stamping polish. If not, it may be a bit dead, but yeah, it's not working as a normal polish anymore. So I popped on a clear coat, let this dry as long as possible, and then started adding this to my nails. I started with my pinky first, just because I picked the smallest one, and this guy here fit the best on my pinky. I kind of wish I did the freehand or just the plain stamping on my pinky, but he fit and it sort of worked in the end. So I'm glad I started with that one first, rather than being left with a really big one or a really big image to try and fit on my pinky at the end. It just probably wouldn't have worked as well. I also started out with my broken nail next, just because it's a little bit shorter, so I picked the smaller image so that I have less cleanup to do. and just carefully lifting up. Also, if you start lifting up and you find it sticking too much, you're probably better off waiting a little bit longer for it to dry rather than trying to force it to lift it. So here's my scary clown, or one of them. I'm really happy with how these turned out. The stamping is probably one of my better jobs of reverse stamping. I felt it was kind of scary images. I had to try and keep them a little bit hidden away, but yeah, so this is the final result. I hope you like them. Let me know in the comments if you're doing any Halloween nail art, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching, and hit like and subscribe. Bye!